some days you feel like you want more of a challenge than others. And that's fine. Do the more challenging poses. And you should have some sensation. You should never, ever, ever have pain. But if you're, and if it's a particular day and you just want to chill and be meditative, that's perfectly fine. But to get the full yin benefit, primarily, there needs to be some kind of, and it doesn't even have to be observable, but some kind of release in your body. And
release in my body.
yeah. So in other words, if you are not challenging your connective tissue at all, it's not going to do anything. Whereas if you elongate it, maybe past the point where it usually goes, not by pulling, but just by putting yourself in a position that allows it to release, then you're getting more benefit. And again, it's your lucky day too, because we're going to focus on the yin today. And somebody, I think it might have been you, Heather, said it would be interesting to see the difference when you apply the Jin Shin Jyutsu on top of the yin by maybe doing the pose one way with no Jin Shin Jyutsu on it, and then maybe applying some Jin Shin Jyutsu and seeing if you notice an increase in energy flow or an arrival of energy maybe where you're touching. So that's always an option, but I'm going to suggest it to you at certain times today so that you can try it. The other really good suggestion I got was to have 5 minutes at the end of class, because typically I'm not seeing you and you may not know if you're doing it right, but not right, but you may not realize, or you may have questions about the way you've done it. And I can answer that. I can answer any logistical questions, anything you want at the end of the practice. And I'm happy to do that. So as I said, some of you who are signing up through Downtown Desert Yoga didn't get my email asking for feedback about what's working for you, what maybe suggestions you have. And I'd appreciate it if you have comments to make. My email address is goldcraneyoga@gmail.com. And we have 2 more classes after this. So any comments I'll kind of incorporate in the 2 classes.
Alison, I'll type that email address into the chat over here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Colleen.
It's goldcrane@gmail.
Goldcraneyoga.
Got it.
@gmail.com.
Alison, can I ask a question?
Of course.
When you're doing the Jin Shin Jyutsu, my temptation is to push kind of hard or to rub or something. But did you tell us once that it's supposed to be very soft?
Yeah.
Explain that.
The more tender you are, it's like you're thinking of your fingertips or your palm even as jumper cables that's trying to draw the electricity or the energy towards that source. And if you're pushing, it's repelling it.
Oh, okay.
If you're just touching, really gently, it's like finding it from way down and attracting it. Okay. And sometimes it's hard because you're in a position like this or something and, you're kind of hanging on. And I have to remind myself, just light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anybody else have any questions before we start? I'll leave 5 minutes at the end for any questions, comments, anything. But what I want to do today is a lot of you do yin twice a week with Colleen. A lot of you have done yin with me for years here in France, but some of you have never actually done yin, and you jumped into the Yin Shin Jyutsu, and I never really thoroughly explained the philosophy and the technique of yin. So today, instead of focusing on the Jin Shin Jyutsu, which I often do, I'm going to focus a little more on the yin. And you are free to not even bother with the Jin Shin Jyutsu part, or maybe you want to start in the yin and then add the Jin Shin Jyutsu. And what I've done for that is I'm doing really traditional from, who I studied with, yin poses. And I've made it really easy to just put the Jin Shin Jyutsu on. I'm not doing any flows, anything like that. It's just holds, and I've made it easy. So, again, roll your own. You want to do both, great. You want to do one or the other, great. I know one person in their comment said, I never even bother with the yin. I just love the Jin Shin Jyutsu so much. And I was like, well, cool. So I'm going to start with a little bit of, a really brief explanation of kind of the goal of yin. And that is to elongate and elasticize, here's the cat, the connective tissue. And the way we do that is by putting ourselves in a position where our body weight is allowing us, is kind of letting us flop, for a better word, into a deeper aspect of the pose. So, and the connective tissue, the main connective tissue that gets really, really tight in most people is the spine, the back, and the hips, and around the psoas. So most of this work is on the spine and the hips. So I always offer you the option of doing the poses on your back, but if you're doing it on your back, you're probably not getting as much extension in the spine and the hips. You're getting opening sometimes, like if you're doing a butterfly on your back, but because you're not doing the forward kind of pull out of your tailbone with your spine, you're not getting the more vertical extension in the psoas muscles and the spine. So I'm going to suggest, unless there's a reason that you don't want to do it that way today, in which case that's perfectly fine, that you try and do most of these poses with a forward bend, the ones that involve a forward bend. That really gives you the full extension. Whereas if you're just on your back, you're getting, like I said, lateral extension with your hips, but not really a whole lot's going on with your spine. So the other thing with the guy I studied with, Biff Mithofer, he always did a scan at the beginning of the practice and a scan at the end of the practice. So at the end, you could see what's changed about your body or your emotions or your mental state or whatever. So instead of starting with the Jin Shin Jyutsu hug, which is typical with Jin Shin Jyutsu, we're going to start with the scan, which is typical with this tradition of yin. So you're just going to flop yourself open on the mat, on your back. It's called a starfish scan. So visualize a starfish. And if you can avoid using props, it's a good idea, because then you'll see where, it's like, oh, my neck kind of hurts. I don't, kind of thing. And you can compare it at the end. Whereas if you use props, you're ameliorating a situation right away. We're going to use tons of props throughout the practice, but not in the scans if possible. And in your scan, you're not wanting to change anything at all. You are wanting to observe. Let me turn myself up.
So before you mute everybody, Nancy wants to know, did you say, can we roll our own?
Only if you share. Okay, this time I can't just get me for some strange reason.
What do you mean?
Just me in the picture.
Yeah, you're.
Am I in your picture exclusively?
Yeah.
No,
All righty.
You're big.
no.
No, I see I've got everybody now.
Well,
No.
I can put you on. I can change it to just you, but
Okay, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to mute everybody and then see if that works. This is weird.
Have to get out of gallery view. to do that.
Oh, I see. I'm in gallery view. That's the problem.
Go to speaker view and then tap your own image.
Okay, where do I get to speaker view?
It's on participants.
Upper right-hand corner.
Oh, got it. Speaker. There I am. Am I there? Thumbs
Yes,
up or thumbs down? Okay. Okay, so we're going to start in starfish, which is just flat on our backs, sprawled, any way that feels good. And once you're there, see if you can stay there so that you're observing your body in the same position throughout. And when we come out, kind of try and remember how you felt, how you were sprawled at the beginning. So we're just gonna flop. Maybe take a couple of deep breaths just to bring yourself into your room, into your practice. And then bring your attention to your feet. And just notice where they're touching the mat or the floor. Notice if they're flopped in or out or the toes are pointed out, up. Notice if they're doing the same thing on both sides. Then move your attention up your legs, noticing where your legs are touching the floor. And notice if one leg feels heavier or lighter, or maybe longer or shorter than the other leg. Almost always my left leg feels heavier, more vibrant. Come into your buttocks, your hips, your belly, and notice if you feel evenly balanced on the floor, or are you tilted one direction or another? Notice your belly. Notice the rise and fall. Then starting from your tailbone, start to mentally move yourself all the way up your spine, noticing where your spine is touching the mat. I have a big gap until kind of mid-back, bra strap level right now. I don't feel like my spine is touching the mat anywhere there. And then I'm kind of plastered to the mat all the way back up to the back of my neck. What's going on with your spine? Any places that feel creaky or misaligned as you do that visualization? And then come into your shoulders and notice whether they're kind of pulled up towards your ears or they're soft and flat against the ground. Are they the same height? And move down your arms. Notice where they're touching the mat. Notice if one arm is closer or further away from the midline. Notice the position of your hands. Are they palms up or palms down? Are the fingers the same on both sides? The thumbs the same? And then move back up your arms and come into your chest. And notice your breath. Notice the tempo of your breath. Notice where it's going. Is it shallow at the top of your chest? Is it going all the way into your belly? Don't try and change your breathing, just observe. See if you could feel your heartbeat. What does that feel like? Notice your throat. Does it feel extended or closed, depending on the position of your chin? And then come into your skull. And notice how your head is lying on the mat. Does it feel tilted back or rocked to one side? Notice your jaw, your lips, your teeth, your tongue. Is there any tension there? Come into your forehead, your cheeks, your eyes. Notice if there's any activity behind your closed eyelids, maybe movement or light. And then bring your attention about a foot above your body and look down at the pattern your body is making on the floor. Just notice the pattern and notice the symmetry between the sides. If you zipped yourself down the middle and separated your two sides and then fitted them back on top of each other, would they be the same or would they be distinctly different? And finally, as you look down upon yourself, assess your emotional and mental state by just filling in with the first word or phrase that comes to your mind, filling in this blank. Right now I feel, what comes to mind? And we're going to come up to sitting, but we're going to come up really, really slowly, trying not to disrupt the stillness of our body. So imagine that you're a wave forming out on the ocean, and your head is the crest of the wave. It's going to be the very last thing to form. So we're going to start by bending our knees, bringing the soles of our feet to the ground, and do it at your own pace. And then rolling over onto whichever hip seems most logical, whichever direction you want to right now, and bringing that arm with you. So you're now lying on your side. And then using your arms and your hands, letting your head be soft and hanging. Start to push yourself up to any comfortable sitting position that seems natural to start in. Maybe keeping your eyes closed through the whole process. And then when you get to sitting, if you have opened your eyes, close them again. And visualize the contours, the outline of your body. And notice the energy within that outline. Notice the movement of the energy. What does that feel like? And then very gradually flicker your eyelids open. And here we are. So I want to, before we move into some of the yin poses, I want to talk a little bit about the not optimal way, but if you want the maximum elongation in those connective tissues, the way that my teacher at least recommended. you have to gauge for yourself if this is good for you. If this does not feel right for you, don't do it this way, okay? I always, when I'm doing forward bends, I always sit on some kind of prop. Chris uses a block. I usually use a pillow. You can use a zafu. You can use whatever you want. But I sit at the front edge of it so that my pelvis is already very slightly tilted forward. If I'm not sitting, if I'm not raised a little, when I start to move into a forward bend, I start to round here. Whereas if I'm tilted forward already, I'm actually moving from those hip connectors. So I move into a yin pose, and I'm just going to demonstrate this quickly with the breath, with my breath. So on my initial inhalation, I straighten my spine. On my initial exhalation, I move very gently and slowly forward with that straight spine. Inhale, maybe straighten it a little more, not sitting back up, but just lengthening it a little more. Exhale, without bending anywhere, move a little further forward until I get to my edge of where it's comfortable, where my legs aren't feeling too pulled, my back doesn't hurt. And when I get to my edge on my next exhalation, I round. At that point, I might want to put a prop under my forehead. I often use my hands as a prop because then, as my connective tissue softens, I can take one hand away and allow myself, my spine, to soften a little more into the pose without dropping. So that's pretty much how I go into every yin pose that I do. Now, some people are really tight there. So they may not go very far forward before they start to round, and that's fine. But what you need to know is that you're not getting the extension in your back, in your lower back, you're getting it in your mid back if you do that, which is fine. I'm never going to suggest that you go beyond a comfort level, but sensation is not always bad. It's important to learn the distinction between pain and sensation. So often I don't go in very far to begin with before I do this. And then I maybe move a little more, and then maybe I've gone too far. I just back out a little. So there's a spot in there where you're maybe adjusting. Again, I use props like crazy. When I do a butterfly, I have props under here. When I do extended bridge or extended, whatever this is, legs straight out, I use props under my knees. Whatever props you want. We're going to start with full butterfly. Your Jin Shin Jyutsu poses, should you decide to use them at any time, are going to be right here on the inside of your ankles, right on that ankle bone. So I will be going like this, or I might just go into it and then put my hands there. You can use them. You don't have to use them. We're going to hold this for 5 minutes, and I'm going to count you in the movement into going in. You can ignore me, or you can follow my count. You can let it go as soon as you're in there, or you can continue a count. What I do is I do a 4-breath inhale, a 4-breath exhale. So I'm going to get myself in position with my props here under my knees for full butterfly. I like to have my feet extended fairly far from my body so that there's room for me to move forward in. I know that this groin is tighter than the other groin, so I put a bigger prop under this knee. They may get arranged as I go along. I close my eyes and I inhale, my spine straight and my head towards the ceiling. 3 a second, 4 a second. I always pause before the inhalation and the exhalation. And then I just start to tilt forward from my tailbone with my back straight for a second. Pause. Inhale, maybe I can just get my back a little bit straighter for a second. Start to move forward, heart first. 3 a second, 4 a second. Can I inhale forward any more with my back straight? Not much. So I'm just going to inhale my back straight, and then after my pause on my next exhale, I'm actually going to start the rounding. And when I round, I try and round all the way through my spine. I try and be aware of my mid-back, of my neck. I let my head go. If I want to prop my forehead, if I want to prop my belly, any props you want, use them. I like to continue that slow, even breath. I find that I kind of surf the breath, and the breath allows that connective tissue to relax just a little bit more. And you're never pulling yourself into a pose, you're relaxing into a pose. Inhaling, I imagine my chest filling with air. And exhaling, I imagine my jaw and my shoulders just softening some more.
And Alison, the hands are on the inside of the ankle.
Exactly. Inside ankle bone. So in my case, I'm not putting my fingers right on it. I'm just draping my hands over it. If you still want support in your forehead, take a pillow or a prop and put it on top of your hands so you can rest your head on it, or your head can just be loose. Sometimes with your head loose, it encourages that dropping into the pose a little more. As I told you, if you're doing it, this is Safety Energy Lock 5. I'm not going to go into a great description of it. I'll just tell you the meaning and the mantra and 1 or 2 of the effects. The meaning is regeneration, letting go of the old, embracing the new. The mantra is free of fear. This is good for fears, uncertainties, and discarding old habits. It's great for anything involving the uterus, ovaries, prostate, opens the chest and the bronchia. Take 3 more deep breaths. And then you're going to come back out as carefully as you went into this pose. Do anything you need to do to loosen up, and we're going to do half butterflies. So right here, I'm going to switch my props a little bit. I'm going to extend my right foot. I'm going to take my shoe and put it under my right knee. Give it a little support. Keep the same prop under my left knee. Your Jin Shin Jyutsu point is the sole of the foot, the inside arch and the sole of the foot. So don't worry about it while you go into the pose. You can do it with either hand. I like to do same side hand. So I'm going to set myself up with my props in my half butterfly. I like to do all of this with my eyes closed. It makes me much more aware of what's going on inside my body, but you can do it however you want. I close my eyes and I inhale my head towards the ceiling. 3 a second, 4 a second. Pause and then tilt. 3 a second, 4 a second. I'm not going to count your breath anymore. Just follow your own breath, following it into the pose till you hit your edge, and then round. Maybe readjust your props, and if you're doing the Jin Shin Jyutsu part, let your hand or your fingers rest on the inside arch of the foot of the bent knee. If you want to prop your head, figure it out. I always take about the first minute figuring out what's making me perfectly happy in this pose. And then I can just let myself completely relax into it. This is Safety Energy Lock 6. The meaning is balance and discrimination. And the mantra is, I give what I receive. We have 1 more minute here. Sometimes in the last minute of a yin pose, I like to extend the exhalation by maybe 1 or 2 breaths, or counts rather. Sometimes that allows me to soften a little more into the pose. Start to carefully move yourself out of this side. Do whatever you need to loosen out, to get a little flexibility maybe, and then just switch sides. You know what to do going into it. However, slowly, thoughtfully you can, finding your props as you go along the way, just surfing the breath. Your Jin Shin Jyutsu point is the inside arch of the bent foot. If your attention wanders, you can always come back to the breath. Holding cell 6 promotes good posture. It's really good for spinal back, pelvis, and knee conditions, digestive problems, and it harmonizes our sense of balance. Mentally and emotionally, it helps achieve inner balance. Take 3 more deep, slow breaths. When you're done with those 3 breaths, as carefully and slowly as you went in, move yourself back out. Our next pose is going to be Sphinx. It's going to be on your belly, and give yourself a minute to get there. So if you want to bend your knees and windshield wiper them or arch your back, whatever you want to do on your way to coming onto your belly, do it. Oh, you can moan and groan. You're at home. So, Sphinx is one of my very favorite poses, if not my very favorite. And those of you who've done yoga with me have heard this ad infinitum. But Sphinx is the primary pose for renewing the curve and the arch of your back. And if you visualize a child as they're learning to walk, they're very arched in their back, almost swayed back. And as we get older, we lose that arch gradually just through day-to-day living. And when you go to a nursing home, you'll see a lot of people who are just really hunched over and their shoulders are forward because they've lost the arch in their back. And that is why older people fall. This pose is all about keeping your balance. So initially, when you start Sphinx, your back may feel kind of crunchy. That's one of those sensation pain things. My back always feels crunchy when I start this. But as I move into it and do it a little more gradually, it's like I used this analogy once and I like it. It's like it's a ribbon that has starch in it. So as you increase the curve, it's pressing out the starch and making your back more flexible. Listen to your body. Your body will tell you when it's not good for it. If you need a pillow or a prop under your belly, put it there. The Jin Shin Jyutsu pose is right here, fingers or hands under your cheekbone. So you can go into it not using the Jin Shin Jyutsu pose and then add it. We're going to do this pose for 5 minutes. Feel free to come up or down anytime you want. But I like to really hold this. Often when I start, I realize that my buttocks are really tight. So check your buttocks. Notice if they're tight. If they are, just let them go. And I've used this visualization for years. You're probably all tired of it. But a visualization I really like is imagining that my breath is a waterfall coming down through my neck, through my back, pooling in my belly. My belly is a deep, dark pool. And on the exhalation, I just let that water seep into the earth. And that completely relaxes my belly, increases that arch. Sometimes I find that if I put my toes together and I let my heels drop out, it keeps my buttocks more relaxed. Some people spread their legs a little further apart. Do anything you need to do. This is Safety Energy Lock 21. Its meaning is profound security, escape from mental bondage. Its mantra is, I see beyond my own limitations. Good for any problems located in the head, eyes, ears, sniffles, neuralgia. It's good for worry, rumination, mental tension, and it's an energy booster. We have 1 more minute. Don't forget the breath. Let go of the hands, lower yourself to flat down on the mat. You can prop the forehead on your hands if you want, and just let any tension go out of your spine, out of your buttocks, out of your shoulders. We're going to come up to sitting to do one more seated forward bend, but I like to pass through child's pose on my way up to sitting. So I'm going to arch my back a little bit again, place my hands under my shoulders, curl my toes, push myself up and push myself right back into child's pose. I like to do an extended child's pose with my hands reaching way out front to get that real stretch. And then by any means that works for you, that's comfortable for you, we're going to come back up to sitting. I'm going to get my prop here. I need both my boots for props on this one. We're going to do dragonfly, which is a wide-legged forward bend. I need a lot of stuff for dragonfly. I need my boots for under my, oh, well, when I start, I bring my legs out as far as I really can, as far as it's comfortable, and then I move them back in a little bit. So I've got plenty of room to move forward in. I don't go very deeply into dragonfly. This is an amazing pose for your hips. I bring myself a prop here to kind of land on. And if you're going to do the Jin Shin Jyutsu part, it's the inside of your knees. So I'm going to move in the way I usually do by inhaling my head really straight up. Exhaling that tilt forward. Inhaling, and I really can't go forward much more. So on my next exhale, I'm just going to round my back very gradually. This is an intense pose. If you want to round from sitting straight, that is perfectly fine. I'm going to, maybe not. Yeah, I might drop my head on my zafu. Nah, I'm just going to let it hang. You do what you want. I'm going to put my hands on the inside of my knees and just resume that yin breathing. Don't forget the pauses between the inhalation and the exhalation. That allows that connective tissue to just settle for a moment. This is safety energy lock 1. In Jin Shin Jyutsu, it's considered the prime mover. Carries the power of unity into our being and allows life energy to descend the front of the body, supporting, exhaling, and clearing the head. The mantra is, I'm in harmony with the universe. Physically, holding cell 1 brings movement into any stagnation of energy in the body. calms the nerves and relieves stress. We have 1 more minute here. Move yourself out of this. Do whatever you need to do. I always like to arch my back a little bit, or yeah, hollow it a little bit on after a forward bend. And we're going to do 2 fairly, because I talked so much at the beginning of the class, fairly short twists. And again, I offer you several ways to do your twists. Well, maybe we'll do it one of 2 ways. Depending on whether, well, maybe actually we'll do it one way because we are working on our psoas muscle, our lower back today. So if this is comfortable for you, have lots of props around. If this is comfortable for you, you're going to come to your back. Bring your knees into your chest and extend your arms out in a T position. And then start to roll yourself over onto your left hip. And you may want to have a prop available there to receive your knees. If your right shoulder comes off the ground, you may want to have a prop on that side to receive your shoulder. Get yourself into this twist. And then on the bottom arm, the left arm, just place it right under the occipital bone, right at the top of your neck, right under that bone next to your ear. That's the Jin Shin Jyutsu pose. Make any adjustments you need to and set up your breath. That place on the back of your head is cell 4. It's the window that lets the light in. The mantra is visions come true. Opens the energy flow both in and out of the head. Balances the energy of the right and left sides of the body and connects the two sides of the brain for better learning and coordination. Let go of the Jin Shin Jyutsu pose and carefully roll yourself back onto your back. Bending your knees and placing your feet on the floor before you go to the other side and straightening your spine. Then move your props if you need to. Bring your arms into that T position. Bring your knees into your chest and roll over onto the right hip. Prop wherever you need to. And breathe. Holding cell 4 is good for headache, neck tension, dizziness and sleeplessness, calms thoughts, promotes logic and common sense. Carefully roll yourself back onto your back. And then just move yourself back into that yin starfish pose. However your body opens up now. And we're going to repeat the scan, looking for changes in the way we feel, both physically and mentally, and looking for particularly changes in the symmetry between our sides. Our sides are never symmetrical, but often I find I'm more balanced at the end of this practice. So take a breath or two once you're in that starfish, just to let your body get heavy. Settle onto your bones. And then bring your attention to your feet. Notice where they're touching the mat. Notice their angle or position. Notice their symmetry. Notice if anything has changed. As you move your attention up your legs, noticing where your legs are touching the mat. Notice if there's anything different about the way they're balanced. If one leg felt longer or shorter or heavier or lighter, is that still the case? Is one leg closer or further from the midline? And is that the way they were before? Coming into your hips, your belly, your buttocks. Notice how that whole central core there is resting on the mat. And if there was an imbalance in there earlier, has that changed in any way? I'm much more balanced. I'm almost always much more balanced at the end of a yin practice. Where my left side is usually feels much heavier to start with, now I feel pretty equal. What's going on in your body? Start at your tailbone. Follow your spine all the way up. Notice where it's touching the mat. Notice where it's arching off the mat. Notice if those arches are the same. Notice if there were kinks or sore spots before, if that's still the case. And then come into your shoulders. Notice their position. Are they even? And as you move through your arms into your hands and fingers, notice any changes in position or symmetry, feeling of length or heaviness. And then come back up your arms and into your chest and notice your breath. Has your breathing changed? Notice your heartbeat. You may notice some pulses. Come back up through your neck, your throat. Noticing the balance of your head on the mat. Bringing your attention to your jaw, teeth, tongue. Noticing the feeling, noticing the changes. Notice if there's any activity behind your closed eyelids. And if there is it different from at the beginning of the practice? Usually at the beginning of the practice, I have a lot of kind of jaggedy activity. By the end of the practice, it's just calm. Bring your attention a foot above your body and look down at the pattern your body is making. And notice any changes. And finally, fill in the blank with a thought or a phrase or an emotion or a word. Right now, I feel. And notice whether the way you feel has changed in any way. We're gonna bring ourselves up to sitting the same way we did at the beginning of the practice, very carefully, thoughtfully, trying not to engage our muscles any more than necessary, keeping the looseness and flexibility in our body. And if you'd like to unmute yourself, please do so. Thank you all for practicing with me here today.